Discover the amazing encounter that transformed a cowboy and a preacher's daughter forever. Jake swiped the brim of his hat off his brow, wiping away the sweat that mixed with the dust of despair clinging to him like a second skin. The sun had barely risen over the Texas plains, yet he felt the weight of the entire world pressing down on his shoulders. The ranch, the family legacy, was on the brink of disaster, and despite the memories of his father's teachings whispering in his ears, doubt gnawed at him relentlessly. He could almost hear his father's voice, encouraging him to fight, to work hard. But as he gazed at the drying fields, the cracked earth mirrored the fracture in Jake's own heart. Can he save the one place that's defined him? With each day that passed, the specter of the drought loomed larger, pressing against the tender spots of his resolve. What if he failed? The idea of losing the land, the family history woven into the fabric of his very being, crushed him. He was filled with rage at the unyielding sun, frustration swirling like a dust storm in his mind. Could it be that his father's rugged integrity wasn't enough anymore? This thought twisted like a knife, leaving him breathless with hopelessness. He stepped outside, the dirt crunching beneath his boots as he tried to shake off the looming dread. What choice could he possibly make? With resources dwindling, every decision felt monumental, yet any move he could take left him frozen. To work harder? To reach out for help? The easier path felt like defeat, and yet refusing to act felt like a betrayal to everything his father stood for. Was he meant to carry this burden alone? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As he wrestled with these internal demons, an unexpected thought crept in. What if help was closer than he thought? Jake's mind flickered to Emily, the preacher's spirited daughter, whose laughter danced like a breeze through the heavy air of the town. She was smart, passionate, qualities that puzzled him if he were honest. But she also belonged to a world he couldn't embrace, a town that felt so separate from his ranch life. Yet the brief glimpses he'd caught of her steely determination during those hurried Sunday exchanges ignited something within him. Could their differences somehow forge an alliance? Just the thought sent a rush of energy coursing through him, yet with it came a stinging uncertainty. What if her spirit crumbled under the sheer enormity of his reality? What if she turned away in disgust? The fear of further isolation gnawed at his gut, his breath becoming short as he walked away from the barn. He felt trapped, a wild stallion inside a pen of panic. He had to choose, but the road ahead felt murky. With his heart tugging in different directions, Jake was left standing at a crossroads, each possibility fraught with its own risks. The sun continued beating down on him, leaving him questioning every decision he might make. But would he dare to reach out, to forge that connection? Or would he fall back on the solitude that felt like a tether to the past? The pressure became unbearable, and as a gust of wind whispered through the fields, Jake felt a wave of dread. The answer may change everything. Jake stood on the edge of his world, pulse quickening as he weighed the implications of seeking Emily's help. The notion seemed preposterous, yet an invisible thread pulled at him. Could this preacher's daughter be the lifeline he craved? As the sun beat down mercilessly, a flicker of determination wormed its way into his heart. Deciding not to let fear dictate his actions, he took a deep breath and squared his shoulders. What was the worst that could happen? Rejection? It was a familiar sting. He'd experienced it before, but this time felt different. This felt like an opportunity disguised as a risk. With renewed purpose, Jake strode toward town, each step crunching on the familiar gravel, the rhythmic sound opposing the chaos within. He recalled the lively debates he'd overheard during Sunday service, the fervor in Emily's voice when she championed causes for others. There was fire in her zeal, something that sent a flicker of hope through him. If he could harness just a fraction of that energy, perhaps he could breathe life back into the ranch. As he approached the church, he felt an unsettling mix of anticipation and apprehension. Should he just knock on the door? What would he say? He wasn't asking for handouts. He needed a partner, someone who possessed a different kind of knowledge and perspective, a voice from outside the suffocating realm of family legacy. With a deep breath, he pushed the door open. The familiar scent of polished wood and aged paper filled his lungs, grounding him momentarily. It was unnaturally quiet inside, save for the echoing creak of the ancient pews. Jake's heart raced as his gaze swept across the emptiness, searching for a hint of familiarity until it landed on her. Emily was setting up for the upcoming Sunday service, her brow slightly furrowed in concentration. The sun filtered through the stained glass windows, casting colorful patterns on her golden hair. He hesitated, heart thrumming furiously as doubt seeped in. What if she dismissed him outright? "Can I help you?" Her voice broke the serenity, and before he could retreat, he clasped his hands tightly, holding his ground against the wave of vulnerability threatening to topple him. Hey, Emily." The words spilled out before he could second-guess himself. "I was wondering if... Well, do you think we could talk?" Her brow arched with curiosity. "About what?" Jake swallowed hard, trying to grasp the right words. "It's about the ranch. I could use some insight." He expected a frown, maybe a laugh, but instead, her eyes softened. "You're serious?" "Yeah." He allowed a hint of urgency to slip into his voice. "I'm at a point where I need to rethink everything. I'm not sure how to face this alone anymore." An unexpected spark ignited in her expression, something that mirrored the tumultuous hope brewing in Jake's breast. The seconds hung heavy as she seemed to weigh his words against her own convictions. Finally, she stepped closer, a slight smile playing at the corners of her mouth. "All right, let's talk. I have some ideas that might help." Relief washed over him, but beside it, a rush of uncertainty slithered through his core. This was the first step into unknown territory. As they moved to a secluded corner of the church, Jake couldn't ignore the sudden tension in the air, a feeling of potential that both thrilled and terrified him. But what if their partnership thrived? What if together they disrupted the cycle of despair threatening to engulf him? Would they uncover hidden resilience? Or would the shadows of their disparate backgrounds tear them apart? As the conversation unfolded, Jake realized that he stood on the precipice of transformation, not just for the ranch, but for himself. Yet with every insight shared, the question loomed, would they truly navigate the storm together, or would their differences prove too great? The moment of truth was approaching as they both prepared to confront the very heart of their fears. Jake settled into the secluded corner of the church, the walls steeped in history and shadows. The air felt charged with possibility, electrifying his senses. Emily, her expression now serious, took a seat across from him. She didn't just seem willing to listen. It was as if she was ready to delve into the heart of something big. Jake grappled with a mix of excitement and trepidation. "Let's get straight to it," she said, voice steady. "What are you planning for the ranch?" "I don't know," he admitted, the words feeling heavy. "Everything seems to be slipping away. The cattle sales aren't enough to keep us afloat, and I've run out of ideas." Jake paused, caught in the web of his own vulnerability. Vulnerability was a two-edged sword. It could either lead to greater things or spell disaster. Emily leaned in, her eyes sparkling with determination. "You need a fresh perspective. Let's brainstorm. What are the resources you have? What do you want to achieve?" The rapid-fire questions disarmed him. For so long, he had felt confined by tradition, locked in a mode of survival that left no room for imagination or innovation. But here, in this moment, something began to shift within him, a burgeoning desire to rethink everything he'd known. "I suppose I could start by diversifying," he said slowly, surprising himself as the words came tumbling out. "Maybe tap into agritourism. I've heard about people wanting farm experiences, connecting with animals and nature." "Exactly," she encouraged, enthusiasm feeding off his uncertainty. "What if you opened the ranch for tours or offered seasonal events? Those ideas could bring in revenue and help you connect with the community." Her voice ignited an ember in Jake's heart. He hadn't thought about it that way before. After years of focusing solely on what he could lose, he was beginning to see the potential for what he could create. Yet with each idea exchanged, a gnawing fear lingered. Was he truly capable of making this leap? Would the community he was seeking to invite even embrace him after the family legacy that loomed over his head? But what if no one comes? He challenged, a hint of frustration bubbling beneath his calm exterior. What if they see me as just a failure trying to climb out of the pit? Emily's gaze unwavering, she countered. You're no failure, Jake. Just because the ranch is struggling doesn't define you. It's about how you respond to these setbacks. Taking risks is essential for growth. You have to show them you care enough to try, even if it means facing rejection again. In that moment, a clarity unfurled within him. Her conviction framed a new understanding. To be vulnerable meant possessing the courage to step into discomfort, not cower from it. He could either continue mired in helplessness or forge a new path forward. The thought of creating something significant overshadowed his dread of failure. The realization settled in him like concrete. Let's sketch out a plan, he said, a burgeoning excitement filling each syllable. If we could turn this place around, it might not just save me. It could begin to heal everything. The legacy could become something good instead of a weight I drag around. Emily smiled, and for the first time, it felt as if they were truly allies, embarking on a shared mission. Together, they began to draft possibilities, summoning creativity in each suggestion, peeling back layers of doubt. Hours seemed to dissolve into a whirlwind of brainstorming, fulfilling discussions and laughter. Jake's anxiety transformed into a sense of purpose, one he hadn't felt in a long time. As the sun began to dip outside, casting long shadows through the stained glass, Jake glanced at Emily's focused expression and realized their connection had deepened beyond mere collaboration. Yet the environment felt charged with more than ideas. It pulsated with the potential for something profound to develop between them. But just as his heart danced with a glimmer of hope, an unsettling thought struck. What if this partnership, despite its promise, unraveled? The weight of his legacy still loomed, and failure had a way of haunting him. The moment hung delicately in the air, a tightrope of possibility stretched between them. As they planned for a new future, had they also set the scene for unanticipated challenges? Jake felt the stirring of impending conflict bubbling beneath the surface. Dark clouds still loomed, ready to challenge the bright dawn he dared to envision. As night enveloped the church, Jake felt the weight of uncertainty press down on him. Ideas swirled in his mind, battling against the ghosts of his past. He leaned back in his seat, staring at the intricate stained glass, trying to decipher the patterns that had merged into a kaleidoscope of color. Emily's words still echoed in his ears, igniting sparks of possibility within him. Behind that shield of hope, however, lay a conservative rancher grappling with tradition, and he had to confront that head-on. "Do you really believe people would come?" Jake asked suddenly, the doubt creeping back into his voice despite his best efforts to hold it at bay. Emily's expression softened. She leaned forward earnestly. "Yes, you have something special here. You just need to show it to them." In that moment, something shifted within him. Her unwavering faith stirred buried motives. His thoughts turned to the ranch, its sprawling landscape, the sound of hooves on dirt, the scent of hay in the barn. It wasn't just land, it was home, and somewhere in his heart, he remembered the joy it used to bring. Maybe, just maybe, this could be a way to connect with both the land and the community that had seemed so distant. "What do you want this to look like?" Emily prompted, drawing him back into the conversation. Jake considered his response, contemplating the countless hours he'd spent sunk in worry instead of envisioning future possibilities. "I could create hands-on experiences like horseback riding, petting zoos for kids, or farm-to-table dinners. An escape for people." With each idea that poured out, a mix of exhilaration and anxiety emerged. Would they view him as a risk-taker, or would his ventures be seen as desperate attempts by a fading legacy? "Perfect, but you need to be ready to promote this. There are a lot of competing narratives out there." Promotion, the word hung in the air. Jake was no marketer. He had spent years living within the confines of his family's traditions, rarely venturing beyond them. Did he possess the capability to shape narratives? He could visualize the ranch bustling with visitors, but could he genuinely convert that vision into reality? The conversation then shifted as Emily began to share her ideas for marketing strategies, utilizing social media, creating a website, and leveraging community connections. With each point, Jake felt layers of apprehension peeling away. The fear still nibbled at him, whispering doubts about his competence and leadership. It felt strangely empowering to sketch these possibilities with someone who believed in him, turning his visions from abstract to tangible. Time slipped away, but the sense of purpose remained sharp. As they wrapped up their ideas, Jake glanced around the venerable church, its walls holding memories of worship, forgiveness, and renewal. It dawned on him that, like this place, his endeavor could symbolize not just a business, but a rebirth, a chance to mend the fractures that threatened both his family and himself. Yet, as he contemplated this journey towards rejuvenation, another reality loomed. What if his plans fell apart? The notion prickled at the back of his mind, forcing him to confront his deepest fears. Emily clutched her notebook tightly, seeming to sense his internal struggle. "Planning is just the first step," she reassured him, the sincerity in her tone grounding him. "What matters more is how you choose to dig in and execute your ideas." Jake nodded, absorbing her words, a grounding mantra he would need as he prepared for a leap into the unknown. The self-doubt simmered dangerously close to the surface, but beneath it glimmered a new resolve. "Emily," he said carefully, "this is a huge leap for me. I don't know if I can do it alone. I might need your help as a sounding board if things get tough." A gentle smile broke through her serious demeanor. "Count me in." With their plans beginning to take form, a sense of momentum spiraled into existence. But just as Jake felt a flicker of confidence ignite within him, shadows from his past intruded on the moment. He knew his father's disapproval could loom over every decision he made, and part of him feared the inevitable clash of ideals. The thrill of possibility was tainted with the understanding that the real fight might just begin as he attempted to redefine himself. Suddenly, the image of the closed ranch sign danced in his mind, a reminder of everything at stake. Was he truly prepared to confront these challenges, especially his own family's doubts? The path ahead felt both lined with golden opportunities and fraught with the specter of failure. Jake turned to Emily, his heart pounding. "What happens if we fail?" The question hung heavily between them, taunting and unsettling. The air turned electric with anticipation. The gravity of the moment sharpened their resolve to innovate or risk losing everything. As they began to draft their next steps, the feeling of impending conflict loomed once more. This time, it was personal, a confrontation with his own potential for greatness or despair. Would he gather the courage to mold his own narrative, risk rejection, and face what came next? All he knew was that the journey had only just begun. Jake spent the following days caught in a maelstrom of busy thoughts. He tackled the practical aspects of his ambitions. Sitting at the kitchen table, he scattered a variety of notes, sketches, and marketing articles before him, desperately seeking clarity among the chaos. The faint outline of a plan began to take form, yet self-doubt shadowed each new idea. The mornings were the hardest. As dawn broke, bringing with it the potential for change, Jake would find himself anchored in the familiar routine of feeding the horses and mending fences, repeating the motions like an actor caught in a role that no longer fit. Each step he took echoed with the weariness of indecision, and the thought of springing forth into the unknown felt more daunting than liberating. Amid this fog of uncertainty, he found encouragement in Emily's words. They reverberated in his head, spurring him to action, to confront his father and make clear the vision he had etched in his mind. It felt irrational, daring, yet exhilarating. Yet every thought of confronting his father brought a wave of anxiety, a stark contrast to the excitement he felt during moments of quiet reflection. It was Sunday morning when he summoned the resolve to approach his father. The ranch loomed large in the backdrop, a silent testament to years of rigid notions and unyielding traditions. As he stepped onto the worn wooden porch, he noticed a flicker of sunlight peek across the horizon, illuminating the dust in the golden air. It was a small reminder that transformation was possible. "Dad," he began, his voice trembling slightly, "can we talk about the ranch?" His father paused, looked up from where he knelt, tending to the garden, an area Jake usually avoided. It felt foreign to him, this merging of duty and care that his father so meticulously cultivated. "What about it?" His voice carried an edge of reservation. Jake hesitated. Here was the moment he had steeled himself for. I want to open it up, to share it with the community in new ways. Horseback rides, a petting zoo, farm-to-table nights. I believe we can create something beautiful. He pushed forth, wrestling with the weight of his vision. His father's reaction was immediate, the tension palpable. He stood, wiping his hands on his jeans, a mix of disbelief and disapproval contorting his weathered features. We don't need change, Jake. This place has stood strong for generations. Why fix what isn't broken? Jake felt each word smash against his hopes. Anger simmered just beneath the surface, yet along with it, a burgeoning determination. Because it's not just about us, Dad. It's about growth, about bringing people together. I want to do something bigger. They stared at each other, locked in a battle of ideals. It was a clash he had long anticipated, yet it felt fundamentally different now. He realized he didn't want to defy his father merely for the sake of rebellion. He craved to forge a legacy that transcended inherited expectations. As the silence stretched between them, Jake questioned whether this moment could be the catalyst for transformation, not just for the ranch, but for their relationship. Would he be the undeniable wall in a family tradition? Or could he become the bridge that connected generations of values with a future he yearned to explore? His father's brow furrowed deeply, and for a fleeting moment, uncertainty flickered in his eyes, but it was quickly replaced by defiance. Jake braced himself, knowing what came next could potentially alter the course of his journey. Change is a risk, son. Are you prepared to bear that weight if you fail? His father's challenge hung thick in the air, reminiscent of a right he had expected yet dreaded. With his heart racing, Jake responded, intensity sharpening his words into steel. I have to take that risk to find out. I'd rather fight for what could be than stay shackled to tradition. The door creaked ominously, leaving Jake teetering on a precipice of decision, a potential turning point looming heavy. The challenge ahead wasn't just about the ranch, nor even confronting his father. It was an examination of his identity and his willingness to step into the use of potential he had only begun to grasp. A buzz of uncertainty threatened yet again, but he felt that if he could take this leap, perhaps he could carve out a future as bright as the sun cutting through the morning mist. The next seconds extended into an eternity, holding the weight of a choice that could either shatter or solidify his aspirations. Would he mold his own life from this moment, refusing to let doubt dictate the direction? The answers continued to dance along the fringes of his consciousness, leaving him on the edge of discovery as he awaited his father's reply. The seconds dragged on, tension hanging thick in the air. Jake stared into his father's eyes, searching for a crack, a sign that he could reach him. The silence was deafening, punctuated only by the distant sounds of the ranch coming to life. His father took a deep breath, and for an instant, Jake thought he might bend. Instead, he straightened up, a steel resolve settling into his posture. Failure isn't just a personal setback, Jake. It affects everyone here, he replied, his voice firm. Each syllable felt like a barrier reinforcing the chasm between them. That realization crushed Jake's spirit for a fleeting moment, causing him to wonder if he'd misjudged the potential for change not just in business, but in their very relationship. Jake's heart raced as he considered his next words. What if it doesn't? What if it brings life to this place instead? The fight simmered beneath his resolve, a cocktail of fear and determination. He'd thought of countless scenarios rehearsing his argument in his mind, but none of these conversations had prepared him for the raw reality standing before him now. Life doesn't just happen, son. It's built on hard work and sacrifice. Are you ready to throw that away for the sake of... what? An idea? Jake could feel the weight of his father's legacy, the numerous men and women who had come before him, and the sweat-soaked toil written in the soil of the ranch. But now it was entwined with the vision he had started to cultivate. Would he sacrifice this dream for the fear of disappointing his father? Outside the kitchen window, he caught a glimpse of the sun cresting higher. Instinctively, he thought of Emily, her laughter echoing in his ears, encouraging him to articulate his fears and aspirations. He realized that confronting this fundamental truth, fighting tradition, was not just challenging his father. It breathed life into the true essence of who he was. I will work hard, Dad. I'll ensure it won't disrupt the foundation you built. I just want a chance to show you what this place could become, Jake spoke earnestly, his voice steadying. I owe it to myself to try, to at least step into the unknown rather than remain shackled by tradition. Silence circled back around them, a cloud of uncertainty lingering yet holding just a hint of possibility. Jake's pulse quickened. He felt a turn in his father's demeanor, a slight shift that hinted at the turmoil brewing beneath his steely facade. They stood in a suspended moment before the inevitable reply, an unseen force calling forth the need for resolution. Jake's gut churned, wrestling with the weight of potential rejection and the fear of disappointment. Could he ever bridge this divide? Would his father recognize the courage it took to confront the very foundation of their life? Sometimes the past is a comforting place, Jake, his father finally spoke, lowering his gaze to the dusty porch. But are you prepared to move forward if it means leaving some parts behind? Jake swallowed hard, grasping the layers of understanding tangled in his father's words. A realization began to crystallize. Stepping toward his dreams required not just battling tradition, but redefining it. Adjusting generations of principles would require dexterity in both compassion and conviction. I am ready, Dad. Ready to redefine what this place means, not just for us, but for what it can become. Each word tasted like grit and resolve, imbuing him with a sense of ownership over this new path beckoning him. His father tightened his jaw, wrestling visibly with the chain of generations versus the winds of change. Time stretched interminably, a precipice looming just before them. As Jake's heart hammered in tandem with his pulse, he dared to imagine the bridge this moment could create, not only for the ranch, but for both of them. It began as a smoldering ember of hope, igniting a fierce urgency within him. Would his father wield the strength to embrace change? Would he adhere to the possibility Jake hoped for? The answers were shrouded in uncertainty, their future teetering on the edge of choice. Jake could sense it. The crossroads they stood at was not merely between father and son, but between legacy and evolution. The journey unfolding would be anything but easy, and within that crack of vulnerability lay the true test of their connection, one that would either shatter them or forge a new understanding, cementing their bond. As Jake's father remained silent, the tension prickled with intensity. Would he seize this fleeting moment to evolve their relationship, or would he remain tethered to the past? The air buzzed with anticipation, laden with the decision that lingered just beyond their grasp, waiting to be confronted not just by Jake, but by the both of them. Moments turned into a heavy silence that stretched between them, but Jake realized that fragile emotions could be channeled into resolute action. The world outside faded away as clarity sparked within him. This conversation might determine not only the future of the ranch, but the future of his identity. Each heartbeat echoed a question. What was he truly willing to fight for? Dad, he began, the vulnerability in his voice managed to break through the facade. I understand your fears. You built this from the ground up. But I'm not seeking to erase the past. I want to honor it while still pursuing something new. Just like that, Jake found his mindset shifting. Instead of feeling overshadowed by his father's resolve, he started to see strength in his convictions. Taking a deep breath, he resolved to approach this moment with both courage and compassion. If he wanted change, he needed to embody it. His father, still wrestling with internal conflict, finally met Jake's gaze. The weight of unspoken words hung in the air, building into palpable tension. Honor? He echoed, disbelief lacing his tone. What do you know about honor? All I see is high-flying dreams and uncertainty. Jake felt the sting of his father's skepticism but refused to yield. You're right, I haven't lived all the hard moments you have, but I can learn from them, can't I? I can carry your lessons into this new plan. A quiet fire sparked anew within him. He envisioned the ranch as a platform for innovation and growth, transforming into a vibrant community that merged tradition with modernity. As the sun streamed through the window, illuminating motes of dust, Jake recalled the conversations he'd had with Emily. She'd spoken about her father, the preacher who believed in redemption and transformation. Reflecting on that, Jake became aware that his struggle mirrored the messages preached. Challenging conventional beliefs didn't solely tear them down, it could also reforge them into something profoundly impactful. You talk about ideas. They don't just take flight by wishing for them, You have to be willing to risk, his father replied, crossing his arms, a defensive stance that spoke volumes. Jake noticed the subtle tension in his father's posture. Resistance was inherent in their bond, but perhaps it was possible to redirect it. What's at risk if we don't evolve, Dad? If we cling too tightly to what was, we might miss what can be. He stepped forward, each word heavy with meaning, grappling with the acknowledgement that this conversation demanded more than vacillation. A pause ensued, him holding space for the torrent of emotions enveloping them. The notion of leaving parts of themselves behind didn't have to mean losing entirely. It was a long walk toward a horizon layered with both fear and potential. For a moment, the ranch was quiet with birdsong filtering through the air, inviting possibility. Jake felt the swell of determination transform into a reassuring warmth, coaxing him forward. Let's start here. Let's meet to discuss this idea. Give me a chance to present to you how we can keep the integrity of what you created while expanding its reach. If it fails, you won't be alone in that failure. We're family. We'll still have each other. The edges of his father's mouth twitched, revealing the barest hint of a smile. It felt like a crack in the rigid walls he had built over the years. Would it be enough? Jake's conviction soared as newfound possibilities swirled through him, igniting an internal flame. I don't want you to abandon your heritage, but working together could redefine it, he urged, sensing the shift in the atmosphere surrounding them. Let's strive for something that honors the past but doesn't halt progress. Please. The silence stretched again, filled with unspoken expectations, but now it buzzed not with tension, but with proximity to resolution. Every fiber of Jake's being urged him forward, convinced that this was the moment. But as he watched his father contemplate, another question nested in his mind. Would they really be able to bridge this deep-rooted divide, transforming the ranch's legacy before the looming shadow of change took its toll? As his father's inner conflict flickered visibly across his face, Jake braced for whatever would follow. The next decision would not only shape their personal paths, but alter the trajectory of the ranch itself. Would it lead to a rebirth, or would it mark the end of all they had ever known? The silence finally shattered, but instead of clear resolution, it splintered into more uncertainty. Jake's father looked away, the sunlight glinting off his weathered hands, betraying a lifetime of hard work and care. It had never been just about animals and land. It was about legacy, his father's history entwined with every beam of the barn and every hoofprint in the dirt. Meet me tomorrow morning, his father finally said, a gravity underscoring this simple request. Let's talk at the old barn. You can lay out your ideas. Just know that change is not as simple as it looks. Jake's heart pounded, a mixture of excitement and trepidation swirling within him. Even though this meeting felt like a potential breakthrough, he understood that true transformation promised to reveal deeper layers of conflict still hidden beneath the surface. He spent the night reflecting, thoughts spiraling. What if the conversation led not to collaboration, but to an even greater rift? He paced through the quiet darkness of his room, piecing together his pitch, but also anxiously anticipating his father's inevitable objections. The moonlight filtered through, illuminating the scattered notes on his desk. Jake's fingertips grazed over the papers filled with sketches, innovative ideas and plans. He pictured drone surveys of the land, automated feeding systems, and sustainable farming practices. Yet he felt a nagging doubt. Would his father view these suggestions as blasphemous? But the unyielding grip of tradition didn't just make for stubbornness. It was a bond that carved out their relationship. Jake had seen the fierce protective nature of that heritage manifest in his father's eyes when he spoke about the ranch. Was he simply an outsider trying to pull apart a foundation built from blood, sweat, and dreams? Morning washed over the ranch in hues of gold and amber as he prepared for their meeting. The air held a crispness that mirrored his own resolve. He approached the old barn, the weary wood creaking beneath the weight of history, yet inside, Jake sensed untapped potential. When his father arrived, his aura commanded respect. Jake swallowed hard, and with a nod, they both stepped inside. Sunlight streamed through the barn's slatted walls in fragile beams, illuminating particles of dust that danced between them, much like the ideas flitting through Jake's mind. Okay, let's hear what you've got, his father said, a hint of challenge dancing in his tone. Jake felt a fire igniting anew within him. He took a deep breath and laid out his plans, articulating the vision he had cultivated. As the words poured out, he sensed both excitement and tension swirling in the air. Every idea offered flickered in the eye of his father, who remained inscrutable, at times nodding, at others scowling. Jake allowed himself to feel the ebb and flow of his father's acceptance and apprehension. This wasn't just a pitch, it was a reckoning, a confrontation of deep-rooted beliefs. But there was no escaping the larger battle. Would his father embrace or resist this new direction? As he spoke, revelations began to surface in Jake. He realized that his father's challenge was not just about fear of change, but a deep-seated desire for continuity, a legacy built not purely on land, but on family values and connection to history. Jake could see the struggle in his father's eyes, a mirror to his own uncertainties. "I can see the value in tradition, Dad," he asserted, leaning forward to emphasize the truth of his words. "But I believe we can enhance it. We won't compromise our heritage, we'll expand it." His father's expression turned contemplative, as if every word weighed on him like the thick hay scattered on the barn floor. The tension was palpable, thick with the potential for breakthrough or breakdown. "Let's suppose you're right," his father finally said, his voice quieter, weighed down with the burden of choice. "What if I go along with this? What's in it for me?" The question hung in the air like a fragile promise waiting to bloom or wither. Jake felt the stakes rising higher as he considered his answer, knowing that the path forward would not only redefine their futures, but could also carry the weight of their past. But as he prepared to respond, a sudden thought crossed his mind. What would it mean to prioritize personal growth over tradition? Was he prepared to face the consequences? As he searched for words, the air crackled with tension, setting the stage for what lay ahead. The intensity of the moment gripped Jake as he prepared to respond, a gnawing uncertainty swelling in his chest. His father, still leaning against the weathered wooden support beam, scrutinized him. This was not merely a conversation about farming techniques. It was an emotional battleground, rife with their shared history and unspoken expectations. "What's in it for you?" Jake echoed slowly, buying time to sift through a myriad of potential responses. He could feel the weight of his father's gaze as if it kept him pinned against the barn wall. "It's not just about profit or efficiency, it's about sustaining something greater, a legacy that evolves instead of falters." His father chuckled softly, but the amusement didn't reach his eyes. "Sounds noble, but how do I know it won't lead to the ranch withering away in the embrace of trends? We're not cutting-edge techies, Jake." The skepticism was evident, and each of his father's words pierced Jake's confidence like thorns. A surge of determination welled up inside him. He shifted gears, pivoting the conversation to their shared passion, the ranch itself. It wasn't merely an enterprise, it was a living entity, a testament to their family. "Dad, think about it this way. Innovation doesn't erase our history, it enriches it. We can draw people in, educate them about sustainable practices. It can be about connection to the land, just like you've always valued." His father considered this, brow furrowing deeper. Was he genuinely contemplating the prospect? Jake's pulse quickened, unsure if he should push further or pull back. A moment passed, laden with unspoken fears and wistful dreams. "What's your timeline for implementing all this?" his father finally asked, tone shifting from challenge to cautious inquiry. "If we were to do this, we can't let it spiral out of control. The ranch isn't just our livelihood, it's our life." Jake's heart leaped. This was not rejection, but a potential bridge toward dialogue. "I'm not proposing an overnight change. It'll be gradual, strategic, something we can adapt together." It was exhilarating to envision the future taking shape under their collaborative efforts, and he found himself speaking with newfound clarity. "We could start with small pilot projects, maybe in crop rotation or eco-friendly methods, see what works and what doesn't. We'll learn and refine as we go." His father nodded, albeit slowly. "I see," he said. "But how do we ensure that while we're learning, we're not losing sight of what really matters?" This was the crux of it. Jake realized he needed to address the emotional core of their connection. "It's simple, really. Every decision we make can be rooted in our values. We build on trust, respect, and love for the land, and for each other. By achieving that, we can make the ranch a beacon rather than a relic." Silence enveloped them, thick with the weight of contemplation. Jake watched as vulnerability flickered across his father's face, an unexpected softness that made him question everything. Was it possible that he was seeing the man beneath the decades of rugged tradition? "I want to believe that you've thought this through," his father finally said, his voice gravelly, yet tinged with a hint of hope. "But you need to show me you're willing to step up, run these projects, and make them work." Jake felt an electric rush of responsibility surge within him. This was a chance not just to propose change, but also to prove his commitment to lead, innovate, and safeguard the family legacy. "I will, Dad. I promise I won't just throw ideas without the work that backs them. Let's plan a roadmap together." His father's nod was a potent symbol, and the air around them lightened. Yet beneath this exchange lay the undeniable truth. The journey ahead would not be easy. There would be failures, resistance, and heart-wrenching dilemmas. Just as Jake began to breathe easier, a voice from the rear of the barn interrupted. "You two have some guts talking like this, considering the whole ranch on the line, but are you ready for what that might unleash?" Jake turned, caught off guard by the sudden intrusion, the identity of the speaker igniting a flash of anxiety in his stomach. He hadn't anticipated company. "Who?" he began, but it was already too late to question the intrusion. What if this outsider posed a challenge that made them confront their visions head-on? Jake's resolve thickened. The path ahead was shrouded in uncertainty, but that only heightened his determination. The confrontation would test their newfound alliance like never before. Jake woke up the next morning feeling the weight of the world on his shoulders. After the heated conversation with his father, he couldn't shake the sense that his destiny was intertwined with the fate of the ranch. Yet today felt different. He had a plan. He rolled up his sleeves, a spark of determination igniting within him. A meeting awaited, not only with his father, but an opportunity to solidify his vision and take ownership of the ranch's future. As he stepped into the barn, the sun filtering through the gaps in the wooden walls, he caught sight of his father, who was preparing the horses. Their last dialogue echoed in Jake's mind, but this time he chose to focus on the promise it held, a chance for collaboration rather than conflict. "Are you ready?" Jake asked, his voice steady, striding toward the hay bales that served as their makeshift meeting ground. His father met his gaze, uncertainty still etched in the lines of his face, but beneath that, Jake recognized a flicker of acceptance. "Let's hear it then." Jake felt the familiar anxieties bubble up, but he took a deep breath, channeling the inner strength that had grown from their previous discussions. "I've been thinking about our conversation yesterday. If we're going to innovate, we have to respect the essence of what this ranch is about, its roots. We can merge tradition with innovation." With every word, he felt the tension dissipate a little more. For example, a seasonal harvest festival could celebrate the land while inviting the community to experience it. That way, people see the value in what we nurture here, and it becomes a beacon for growth. As he continued laying out his ideas, rotational grazing, workshops, and eco-friendly farming practices, he sensed his father's defenses gradually lowering. Each proposal was met with thoughtful scrutiny rather than dismissal. The trepidation that typically filled their discussions began to morph into a shared vision, slowly brewing over the morning light. After Jake finished, silence enveloped them. It felt like the old barn was holding its breath, anticipating a response. The wind whistled quietly through the openings above, as if carrying their hopes into the vast Texas sky. "You really believe this can work?" his father finally asked, and the weight of the question was palpable. Jake nodded, confidence surging. "Yes, and I'm ready to work tirelessly to make it happen if we do this together." A tense pause followed, then slowly his father spoke. "If you want to take the reins, you'll have to show me what you're made of." It was neither a concession nor a rejection. It was an invitation into a new dynamic they would have to navigate together. Jake felt a wave of relief and excitement wash over him. He had achieved an essential breakthrough. "I can promise you this. Every step we take will honor your legacy while reshaping our future." The conversation swayed between vision and reality, and they began sketching out their strategic model. Hours slipped away beneath layers of dialogue about community outreach, branding strategies using social media, and even innovative sustainability practices. Through it all, Jake caught glimpses of his father softening, a subtle nod, a moment's laughter, expressions of pride in his son's boldness. As they concluded their meeting, a sense of camaraderie blossomed, an acknowledgement that each step toward innovation occurred on a foundation of trust. Jake understood now that to redefine the ranch was not just about business, but about redefining their bond as father and son. Weeks passed, and Jake dove headfirst into assembling their plans. He, alongside Emily, organized the first harvest festival, weaving together the ranch's rich history and future ambitions. As the day approached, anticipation filled the air. The community's participation became volatile and vibrant. Jake found himself standing in front of a crowd, his heart racing, but this time with purpose. "Welcome, everyone," he began, his voice steady. "Today, we're celebrating the fruits of our labor, not just of the land, but of community and growth." The echo of applause resonated, wrapping around him like the warm sun of the Texas plains. As they unveiled booths showcasing handmade goods, interactive activities, and farm-to-table experiences, Jake caught sight of his father, chatting with neighbors, a glimmer of warmth on his weathered face. In that moment, Jake realized he wasn't alone. They had started to forge a legacy together. This festival, a manifestation of their collaboration, had grown into something far more powerful than their previous struggles. Jake felt a profound sense of accomplishment, solidified by reaching beyond the boundaries of tradition. It was a representation of individual evolution, a testament to overcoming fear and doubt. As twilight settled and the stars blinked overhead, Jake and his father stood side by side, surveying the pulsating life around them. The constant hum of empathy was palpable, a shared energy pulsing through their newfound rapport. This wasn't simply a transition in their professional lives. It was a transformation of identity, affording them both recognition within the community and re-establishing the familial bond that had once felt strained. Jake had emerged from the shadows of uncertainty, proving to himself and his father that stepping into the realm of vulnerability could lead to powerful growth. With recent achievements weighing on his heart, he found himself embracing a solid confidence, one that solidified his place not only as a rancher, but as a leader in the community, capable of shaping the future from the legacy of the past. This was not linear, but Jake understood that the most profound victories lay ahead. He had conquered doubt, demonstrated resilience, and proven that it was possible to honor one's roots while nurturing innovation. Standing with his family legacy now firmly beside him, he was ready to embark on the next chapter, where the balance of tradition and evolution would thrive. To all who have followed Jake's journey, this is your chance to propel your own path toward growth. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, because that really makes a difference. Comment your reactions and theories about this transformative ending. Your engagement matters. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second. Only the true fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these crucial actions.